Suzanne? Okay, thank you. Folks, let's go ahead and get started. I think I need a little more volume, Suzanne. Thank you. Folks, we'll go ahead and get started. My name is David Buttery. I'm the city manager with the City of Woodland Park, and I think that may be a touch too loud. Mayor Turley and our Northeast Teller County Fire Protection District Chief Tyler Lambert and our City Public Works Director Bill Allsbach are currently down near the Christola. They had eyes on that last little flare-up, and they say that that is the area that is still a half a mile below what folks call Motel X Hill, Lucky Four Ranch, Rocky Top Campground. So that was on the utmost of people's minds this morning as they were walking in because they saw that flare-up. According to the fire chief, and this was as of truly 4 minutes ago, he said that's not a worry. It was naturally caused. It wasn't a backburn. Some people thought that it was a backburn through that area. It was not. It was a result of those southeasterly winds bringing the fire a little bit closer up the valley, which it's going to want to do. But as he left that site, they're en route now here, and when they get here, they'll have a chance to speak to you. So I just want you not to worry about that one little flare-up that we saw down there. It's relatively safe from that angle. This meeting has grown. I started doing these on Monday with our city employees because I knew that there was going to be a logistics requirement to help with things like evacuations, notifications, communications, and the such. And so I continued that on Tuesday to keep them apprised so that they would be able to go into action as they had to do yesterday. If you attended this meeting yesterday, this is where you first heard that the city was going to have an evacuation on the east side of town. And as soon as that meeting was over, we began that process working hand in glove with Teller County Sheriff, Search and Rescue, State Patrol. There were 4 state troopers who actually were between jobs going from one region to another, saw this activity and said, hey, we can help. And so people just stepped in and helped us, and we were able to clear out the entire evacuation area, which was the east side of Woodland Park and a lot of Teller County, say below Aspen Garden Way, in about 2.5 hours. And so my thanks to you if you're one of those that's evacuated. I'm one of those who was evacuated for your cooperation. My wife was cooperative in this whole process. What I want to tell you is the reason I tell you about the history of the meeting, because this meeting is not intended to replace the meeting that the Teller County Sheriff holds every evening at Summit Elementary at 7 o'clock. This was intended to get our employees ready to go, and then it morphed into kind of this public meeting process. But the information I'm going to share with you is gleaned from the 7 o'clock meeting from the previous evening, reports that I get through the night, an 8 o'clock briefing on television that you can all watch, and then a 9 o'clock briefing that I attend with the Teller County Sheriff. So again, it's not to replace that information, but rather to consolidate it and present it to you from the perspective of us here in the city of Woodland Park. I'd ask you at this time, if you've got your cell phones on, please turn them to vibrate. Thank you very much. The decision yesterday to evacuate was not one that was taken lightly. It affects you, it affects me, it affects our entire town. We recognize it affects businesses. It was still the right thing to do. It was the safe thing to do. It was the conservative thing to do. It's logistically difficult, but you made it extraordinarily easy. So again, my appreciation to a lot of the folks that you see behind me and to many other agencies for making that happen. I have patrolled the evacuated areas last night and this morning, and I can tell you that as I was driving through, even with a city vehicle, people were stopping me and saying, who are you? What are you doing here? Not my own police officers, but Teller County Sheriff, Forest Service folks. So ID and business card, I had to show those things. I'm telling you that because your neighborhood is secure. Well, it's everyone else in here that's keeping this secure. I just get to talk. But they're doing a good job with that. So take some confidence in that. I I'll try to do my best to give a little bit of a fire update, but Tyler Lambert, our fire chief, will be here soon along with the mayor, and they'll have some opportunities to speak as well. We'll continue to do this 11:30 meeting here every day. I would also encourage you to attend the 7 o'clock evening meetings at Summit Elementary in Divide. The sheriff has much more information than I do. Last night we had the incident commander, Rich Harvey. When you've watched on TV and they bring the incident commander, the guy who is truly in charge of this entire thing was at Summit Elementary in Teller County taking care of Woodland Park in Teller County. So it was great to see him there, knowing that there's a concern that the media hasn't been giving us the coverage that we think we deserve. That's a double-edged sword, folks. If we're not hearing anything, then it's good news, because that means that they've got troubles someplace else. 2 nights ago, when the fire kicked up and ran through across Queens Canyon down onto the west side of Colorado Springs, I don't think anybody can blame them for focusing their attentions on that when we were fine. So let's remember that. Good news, well, no news is good news. If there's bad news, we're going to get it to you. How many of you were at home yesterday and had an encounter with a police officer, Teller County Sheriff, State Patrol, someone coming through to say, hey, folks, you're evacuated. It's time to go? Well, then, see, you are all so smart. Well, one. So the rest of you were smart enough to have your stuff packed and to get out. And to leave. That's what this community does. I told the mayor last night that this community has great respect for 3 things: fire, snow, and a lot of rain. You know how to handle those things, and so you were prepared. So again, my thanks and congratulations to you for that. I also want to tell you that the meeting this morning with the Teller County Sheriff was extremely short. That's because very little has changed. The fire grew only a slight amount overnight. I don't have a progression map, but I'll do my best to describe some of that in just a minute. But one of the other reasons that the meeting was short, and it's again a good news story, is that there was very little to report that had changed. As I was coming back from that meeting, I was able to see C-130s flying just above Rampart Range, helicopters, spotter planes. When Tyler gets here, he'll expound on the resources that have been placed here in Teller County, and it's going to knock your socks off what's up here now protecting us. I mentioned to you that I was cruising through the neighborhoods, checking on the security of your homes, and I ran into many of the Forest Service divisions. That's a sub-organization of their entire organization, patrolling the neighborhoods. They're doing reconnaissance. I was an Army guy, and you do reconnaissance before you launch a fight. They're out there preparing defenses. King's Crown. Think of King's Crown, and at the end of King's Crown is a small cul-de-sac. And at the end of that cul-de-sac is an old mining jeep trail that parallels Rampart Range Road and Highway 24, and it runs from that King's Crown Road all the way to Cristola. There's a team from New Mexico up there widening that trail, going up the hill. Several years ago, the Forest Service had masticators in there clearing out a lot of the brush, getting rid of some of the pine beetle kill so that they could get rid of a lot of those fuels. Well, they're up there now making that a little bit wider. That shouldn't scare you. That should give you sense for calm. My house is about 500 feet from that line that they're building. So I don't tell you that to give you cause for concern like that's a last-ditch effort. It's not. The fire is still up on top of Rampart Range. It still would have to burn down the side of that mountain. But they have time, and time is on their side. And they're working on Forest Service property. They're not in my yard. They're on Forest Service property, helping to make sure that should something catastrophic happen up there, we've got yet another line of defense. So that should make you feel good that they're out there. They're reconnoitering the area. I've given away maps to show them different roads and things like that. Talk to them about the neighborhoods and the configurations of the cul-de-sacs. They have a real good idea of what they would face should that fire come down. Should, not if. Should, not when. Communications is key. How many of you talked to your neighbors and said, did you know we're being evacuated? Well, shame on you that aren't raising your hands, because you should be talking to your neighbors and letting them know what news you hear. It's amazing how many people don't have cell phones, don't have the internet, and may not have a television. So do the neighborly thing and check on your neighbor. Should we have to expand this any further? And then check on them once this thing gets released. Our primary concern is for the safety of you, our employees, our citizens, and then protection of your property. I have absolutely nothing to do with fighting the fire. I have everything to do with keeping you safe from the fire. That's why we did the evacuation, was to ensure your safety. The sheriff's office is hunting the arsonist that's in this area. We don't know if the Waldo Canyon fire was started by an arson. There's many different theories, and we won't know that probably for a long, long time. But they're tracking down that arson. They've increased their patrols. I can tell you that there have been no new fire starts in Teller County in 2 days. So their patrols are keeping that person out. There were some in Douglas County. There were some in Park County. They're not in Teller County. So congratulations to Teller County Sheriff. And our police department is continuing to patrol, but they're also assisting Teller County Sheriff too. As the sheriff moves around different places, they call for backup, and we're able to assist in that too. We have 19 uniformed officers in the city of Woodland Park, and they're doing their best in cooperation with all the other agencies, again, to keep you and your property safe. Let me talk just a little bit about the fire update. So is someone going to control the mouse while I... Okay. We're so high-tech that my finger will cause that little hand to move over there. Folks, I don't mean to be flip if I have a little humor, but I do think that humor is a pretty good stress reliever.
It's the best.
It's the best one? And if my jokes don't make you laugh, I'm not going to be offended. Let me orient you fairly quickly. Manitou Springs is here. Highway 24 up to Cascade, Chipeta Park, Green Mountain Falls, Cristola, Woodland Park. This is the El Paso Teller County line. And Cindy, if I move too fast, I'll try to slow down. So there's the county line right here. Rampart Reservoir, Palmer Reservoir with Eagle Lake Camp. No structures have been lost. No, that's incorrect. One structure has been lost kind of in what we would call our neck of the woods, and that was a tent storage facility at Eagle Lake, the Boy Scout camp. Rich Harvey described it as a 10 by 10 on stilts. He said another one of 4 stilts burned and the building was leaning a little bit. They didn't call that a loss. So they saturated that area as the fire was moving up that way. Congratulations to them on that. Just for some other points of reference, this is the gravel pit area here. This is Motel X Hill, Lucky Four Ranch, that area here. I believe the flare-up that we just saw was in this ridge here, coming over the top and coming up. Again, it's not moving very fast. The progression map that we've seen in some days showed the fire starting in here, and then it came down, and then it moved a couple of ridges every day. It was creeping up. That was another reason why we thought an evacuation was critical, was because it's been creeping one ridge every day. And that one that you saw flare up was one ridge closer. Now, I can tell you that there's a dozer line being built right now, 2 ridges up from the one that just burned. When Tyler gets here, he'll be able to give you an update of where that is. The incident commander, Rich Harvey, said that when that dozer line is in place, he's 80% confident that this part of the fire will be contained. I'm pretty comfortable with an 80% number coming from a guy who's extremely conservative. There are assets from Fort Carson. There are assets from the city of Colorado Springs on those dozer lines. So they're building that as we speak and tying it in to Rampart Range Road. You know, there's Rampart Range Road on top of Rampart Range, and then there's Rampart Range Road down in the city. For most of these discussions, Rampart Range Road, the one I'm talking about, is up on top. And that's this white line right here. Okay? All the way to the Teller County, El Paso County line. Here is the entrance into Rampart Reservoir. Most folks are familiar with that. And you'll notice that until you get closer to the reservoir, there's nothing on the other side. they were able to get some containment in there yesterday as well. Bill Allsbach, our Public Works Director, and the Fire Chief were in this area, and they said that most of it had burned, but most of it had stopped. And so most of the fire energy was a little bit directed this way. Here's an interesting thing about this activity of the fire. You know, the high winds coupled with some of the terrain is what forced the fire down Rampart Range Road onto the west side of Colorado Springs. That same wind caused embers to fly across Rampart Reservoir all the way over to here. So the winds are extremely dangerous, and when we get those afternoon thunderstorms, they become quite chaotic and unpredictable. So another reason why the evacuation was ordered was the concern was in this fire here, if the winds reversed, they could come racing down this hill to Woodland Park. That's only about 1.5 miles. The winds haven't done that. Even with that horrific little cell that we had burst over us yesterday, that wind did not reverse. It stayed generally from west to east or southwest to northeast, continuing to push the fire in this direction or in this direction. You know, the tip of the spear has changed over the days. Initially, it was down here near in the Cascade area. Then it switched up to here, and then it went over here to the west side of Colorado Springs, God bless them. And today, there's more assets up in here. I don't know what we're going to do as it relates to release of the evacuated area. That's a question that somebody posed on Facebook. It's a decision that's made based on how solid is this line, the dozer line, how predictable is the weather. Are we getting high humidities during the day? Are we getting low winds during the day? What does all that look like? I would be foolish to try to predict, and it would be inappropriate for me to try to guess when that decision is going to be made. The mayor and I sit with the Teller County Sheriff and the Fire Chief, and we huddle, and we make those decisions together. The sheriff has the final say, but we work collaboratively through that process. Again, you saw all kinds of activity up here this morning. I did. I mean, just driving back, you could see the aircraft flying. Tyler's going to be here any minute and can take over this, but he's going to tell you that there's just significantly more firefighting assets, and that came as a result of him saying, look, Incident Command Team in Colorado Springs, if you're going to be suggesting to us that we evacuate our citizens, then you have got to dedicate the resources to make sure that if they're gone, their structures are protected. I don't know what the terms mean, but there are now 3 Forest Service divisions in our area. You saw the big maps that had Division A, B, C, Z, Y, X, you know, those big areas. We've got 3 of those now in our area. That should cause you to feel extremely comfortable that our city is going to be protected. You know what I'm going to do is, because they haven't come in yet, I'm going to just take some questions. Yes, Tom?
In the unlikely event, and I'm more comfortable now than I was, if we had to evacuate, what's the recommendation? Go west or go north?
The question was, what's the recommended evacuation route? Should we have to evacuate more parts of Woodland Park? Wherever you have the resources to stay. I believe 67 North is safe. It's only 2-lane, though. 24 West is a bit wider and allows for more capacity traffic-wise. But it really is based on where do you think you want to go to set up your home until this thing ends. If you look at the map, 67 is here and goes up. This gold area is part of the standby for evacuation area. This red area here, or purple, is the area that has been evacuated. You will get out of the evacuated area and the standby area more quickly if you go out Highway 24. I believe either will be safe. What I can tell you is if that we come to a place in this decision-making process that we think it's unsafe, we will tell you. We had our electronic sign out that said evacuation routes, US 24 West and 67 North. If that changes, we will block off 67 and you can only go one way. Or we will block off 24 and you will only go one way. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
I'm in the pre-evacuation area, but I evacuated, and I know a lot of people in our area did evacuate yesterday. Is anybody patrolling that area to make sure that our houses are safe?
Yes, ma'am. The question was, she's in the standby evacuation area. Are people patrolling her areas as well? Yes, they are. Yes, ma'am.
I'm in the mandatory evacuation, and we evacuated Spring Valley. And last night at the summit meeting, we talked about that area is now also in pre-evac orders. Is that true or not true? It was kind of confusing last night.
Yes, ma'am, it was. County Road 5 is I believe, the western border of the standby for evacuation area. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know if Spring Valley's on the left or the right of that.
It's on the right.
Then you're in the standby evacuation order. It's standby. It was intended to give people as much time as possible to prepare. This community's done this before. We know when there's a fire, we get ready to go, whether people tell us or not. But standby means just that. You are way far over on the west side of that. We felt it was important to include the whole area. You get to decide how ready you are. Yes, sir.
We live just north of Aspen Way, and that seems to be where the line goes across. You know, my wife and I had a dispute yesterday as to whether we needed to leave or not. But then we got the robocall, even though we're north of the line, to evacuate.
So what's your question?
Well, I mean, you've got various places. I mean, are we still in the pre-evac, or should we go back home?
His question was, they live north of Aspen Garden Way, and despite some marital discomfort, they've come here together to determine if they're in the standby or the mandatory evacuation area.
Now we're arguing about which direction.
Yeah. The Aspen Garden Way is right here, and then this is not a full-service city government. We don't have counseling. Here's how I'm going to answer your question. North of Aspen Garden Way is not in the evacuation area. It is in the standby. Yes, ma'am, in the jean jacket.
I was just there, started facing, shot of gas. I fell asleep. Had it not been for reverse 911, I wondered what you would happen to. So I was grateful.
She's thankful for reverse 911. Just a minute. Okay, I just got a message that the mayor and our fire chief aren't coming. That shouldn't cause you for concern, but they are slurrying the area down near there. Now, slurry, I learned something. The slurry isn't intended to extinguish the fire. It's intended to control its progression. So they do what they call painting. They put a strip of the slurry down so that the fire line doesn't cross that. Then when they put that down, then they'll bring in the other resources that drop the water to actually extinguish the fire. Okay, yes. Yeah. Good morning.
They're emphasizing on the east side of the highway. The last few days, they've emphasized the importance of the fire not jumping Highway 24. As we all know that live here, there's more timber on the south side of Highway 24 coming up the pass than there is on the north side of Highway 24. So, correct. So, are they still, do you know, can you answer, are they emphasizing it and not crossing Highway 24?
The question is, are they emphasizing the fire not crossing Highway 24 from the north side to the south side? Absolutely. In fact, so much so that yesterday they had firefighters from Cascade to Cristola stationed every 50 feet or yards. I don't remember. It was 50-something, but it was pretty close together, so that if an ember blew across, they could run down and put that out. And so there may have been a little bit of spotting across, but it was immediately extinguished. Yes, ma'am.
If you've been evacuated, how many days should you plan on being gone as of right now?
I cannot answer that question. I think normally what they suggest is that you have 7 days of stuff with you. I can't tell you if we're going home tonight or if it's going to be in 7 days. I just have no way of predicting that.
Kind of on the line.
Yes, ma'am.
Like we're right across from the middle school, so we were kind of told we should just let it go by everybody that's lived here for a long time. So I was ready to go because I can't sleep anyway. So my husband, of course, wants to come back.
Must be
I don't
decided.
need counseling. I just was, wondering what your thoughts were. If we have a place to go, just go ahead and stay.
Well, if you're when you say you're across the street from the middle school, to the east or to the south? Oh, Wilderness. Okay.
I don't know.
No, I do. I do. You are not in the evacuation area. You're in the standby area, but you're extremely close to the evacuation area. But again, you get to make the choice. Yes, ma'am.
I have two questions. I hear conflicting views whether or not we should turn the gas off.
The question was, should she turn her gas off? No.
We have to evacuate.
No. If you have to evacuate, no. Because the gas, if you have a propane tank that is part of your gas grill, then I would turn it off and take it away from your house. But I spoke with Sean Hurd, who is the operations manager for Black Hills Energy for our region, and he described to me where the different shutoff areas were around town. And they're standing by. They have packets. They have an execution plan like we did for evacuation that should the fire get closer, they will come in and isolate different parts of town. But I'm going to tell you that if the fire gets closer, we're going to be taking more action for the remaining parts of Woodland Park. They have a valve on the north side of town and one on the south side of town. They're going to turn those two off. But they can isolate certain areas. I don't believe they can isolate this block or this block, but they can definitely isolate certain areas. Yes, ma'am. Yes. The question was, how do folks who are evacuated from Woodland Park get their mail? The postmistress from Divide reported last night that all Woodland Park P.O. box mail would be in Divide. I don't have a P.O. box. Mine gets delivered to a neighborhood mailbox unit, and I don't know the answer to that. You could call the post office, either here or in Divide, and see if they could help you. Unfortunately, I don't know the answer to that. You had two questions, though. I'm sorry.
To answer that question, there's a sign on the Tamarack station that says that Divide is the post office. Where is it in Divide? But I still have my other question.
I think that's called cheating. The post office in Divide is where she thinks all the mail from Woodland Park is. I can only confirm that it's P.O. Box mail, but give them a call. The post office in Divide, it's not a big place. Look for it. Yes, ma'am. I don't know where it is. That's an extremely good question. Currently, the hospital actually is in the evacuation area based on the map that was drawn. But the Teller County Sheriff asked the hospital to keep the emergency room open, and we heard this morning that it is. Also, Peak Vista is open, and that's in Divide. And so, say again? Right by the post office. And I have to tell you, and I'm getting goosebumps on this. The resilience of this community is phenomenal. No, that wasn't really funny. I'm absolutely serious. I'm going to give up. Gary, you've already had one. Yes, ma'am. Now I'll come back to you.
Post office at Peak Vista or by Hayden Park in Divide?
By Hayden Park on the south side. Okay. So beyond that, I suspect then that, there's Red Cross shelters. They've got minimal ability, I think extremely minimal. I'd have to say Buena Vista, or going the back way up to the Denver area. Salida. Crystal Creek.
Cripple Creek.
Like I said, Cripple Creek. Yes, Bob.
Post office issue. I went to our Tamarack office yesterday. They were
Yeah, the Postal Service doesn't work for us, so they get to make that decision. And the postmistress, you know, she didn't do the neither rain nor sleet nor dark of night, but she came pretty close to it. And mail is being taken care of, but you know we have to be patient in these times. Cord.
David, are you aware of any fundraising robocalls that have been made that's been approved for fundraising for the fire up in this area?
The question was, am I aware of any approved robocalls requesting for donations? I am not. I would treat each of those as a scam, personally. Yeah, that's a short answer.
Those are occurring.
They are.
The place we're staying out in Divide a little over an hour ago received a call, and as our friend punched through to get to a live person, when she started to question, the person hung up. So those phone calls evidently are going on.
Yeah, I would not pay any attention to any of those.
I have a response on that from KKTV. It says that there's phone calls coming from 505 area code, and they said that they are most likely scams.
Thank you very much. Just confirmation from the media that it is a scam. Yes, ma'am.
I live in the canyon across from the Cristola Bar and Grill. That's, I think, pretty much right on the front line right now.
Like 1st or 2nd Street in that area?
Up 4th Street.
Okay.
Back up in the canyon, back up in there.
Yes, ma'am.
You were talking about where they're dozing. Can you give a little more specific? And also, they mentioned in the briefing this morning, they said something about trying to put in a sprinkler system. Where is that going in to, if you know?
The question is, where are they putting in the dozer line, and 2, are they doing a sprinkler system there? I don't know the answer to either of those. What I can tell you is that it's generally in that vicinity. I know they attempted to do a dozer line at Lucky Four Ranch, but that as they got to the end, they determined that terrain was too difficult to overcome, and they moved their dozer line north. But I can't tell you. I was hoping Tyler would be here because he would know exactly, because they just drove it. The second question on the sprinkler system, I'm not aware of that. I can tell you that when the fire was approaching Palmer Lake, the reservoir up here, they did do something, whether it was dousing with buckets or something, but they were able to drench the entire area, and that's why around this little area you don't see any fire. Yes, sir.
If I could answer. They had it on the news again this morning. What they're doing is they're going in, dozing, masticating, and then dampening down, wetting down the chips that they put down to again impede the flow.
Yeah.
Movement of fire.
Thanks, Pete. The statement was that yes, what they're doing is it's kind of a tiered process. They do some mastication, knock the trees down, chew it up, push it all away, clear it, make it a little bit wider, then wet it down. And so it's kind of they're stair-stepping up the hill that way. Thank you. Yeah, Gary.
I have a sprinkler set up on my roof. In the event that I get evacuated, what is our water supply system like here? Can I turn that on when I leave and it keeps my roof saturated in case there's sparks?
The question is, he's got a sprinkler system on his roof. Will our water supply handle it? And hidden in that was, will it do any good? Because that's what I'm going to answer. I don't know that it would do much good if a fire were to come through. If it gives you comfort, we have the water to do that. I'll tell you that our tanks are topped off. Our reservoir is topped off. We have the ability, because we have actually a spare filtration system that allows us to increase by 50% our normal water-making capacity. I think there are a couple of things, and I don't want you to misread what I'm saying, but I've always told folks I will give you the honest answers and the whole story, but I don't want you to draw the wrong conclusion. About a third of our water comes from the Homestake pipeline. We use some of that, but we don't always use that. The other 2/3 comes from well fields on the northwest side of town, completely opposite of where the imminent danger is. So we tap into the Homestake pipeline rarely. But we do have a pump station up there. And that pump station is what delivers the water to our reservoir that then gets treated, that goes to help fight the fires. That pump station is in this area up in here. It's way up high. Our reservoir is in this general area right here. Actually, yeah, right in this area. The firefighters are aware of our pump station. We also have a generator standing by that if the electricity gets knocked out, we can get a generator up there. I tell you all this because I want you to feel secure that we have plenty of water in our city's firefighting system to fight the fires should it come into our city. Yes, sir.
Can I make a comment on his sprinkler idea? A friend of mine who was evacuated in the Springer fire did put sprinklers on his roof, and when he got back in, there was 4 inches of water in his basement because he didn't cover the roof
Here's a couple of questions that. Okay, I'll try to. Mario from the post office, our postmaster here.
Customers in the pre-evacuation area are still at home, or get your mail at home, or your cluster the box in the neighborhood. P.O. boxes all go straight to Divide. Mandatory evacuation area, just as we were discussing, in Divide. That's from the postmaster here.
And one of the questions that I'm not sure if it came up on Facebook or where it was, has the fire jumped the ditch south of Swiss Chalet? No. The answer is no. I don't know which ditch they're referring to, but it has not. Say again?
That's the tank ditch. I mean,
The dozer line? I know what tank ditches are. Yeah.
That dozer ditch.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
I got a call right before I was leaving, and someone had called to ask if the pre-evacuation had changed this morning because they had heard it was going up to Tranquil Acres. We're outside of Woodland Park in Woodland West, going up 24. So are there new? Because as of this time, we've been on nothing.
I'm not aware that the standby evacuation area has expanded. When we determined the standby area 2 days ago, I think, again, it was the meeting with me, the sheriff, and the fire chief, and our mayor. We determined that, and we determined the evacuation area. This morning, following the 9 o'clock briefing that we customarily met, we did not meet because there was no need to meet. So I'm not aware of anything, and I'm kind of acting as the public information officer for the city, and I'm in direct link with the PIO for the county. And we've talked several times this morning since that 9 o'clock briefing, and she has not said anything about expanding that evacuation area. Yes, sir.
My name is David Wickman. I live at 800 L.
Who used to work for us.
What she just said, I saw yesterday afternoon, and I saw it again at 4:45 this morning on TV. I also several
I'm sorry, saw what?
extended the evacuation line to Knox, close to Divide, Tranquil Acres, Blue Ridge.
Okay. The question is we're getting some conflicting reports on the standby evacuation area. Jim, can you quickly confirm or deny?
It should be to North Road and to the Douglas County.
Okay, this is as of yesterday at 2:15. Yeah, the remainder of this is the pre-evacuation or standby. The terms are synonymous. Basically, all of the city of Woodland Park that is not on mandatory is on standby. All areas east of County Road 25, which is Tranquil Acres and Mox, to Blossom Road, including the subdivisions of Tranquil Acres, north to the intersection of Forest Service Roads 357 and 357B as in boy, north on Forest Service Road 357 to County Road 78, which is Painted Rock Road, north to the Douglas County line. If you need more clarification on that, we'll get it, and I want to know why I didn't get this. So, Jim, I need you to track that down with Teller. Well, it came. I just need you to track. I'm not blaming anybody. I just want to know why we didn't have that. Okay. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I saw it on TV twice.
No, that's fine. We see the order here, and I'm not sure why the city doesn't have it. We'll try to track that down. And remember that there is the 7 o'clock meeting with all of Teller County at Summit that may be able to answer that question better than us. Yes, Costa. Yes, sir.
David, it seems to me the most important factor right now is the flare-up that occurred this morning, occurred
There was no flare-up across the highway. The question was kind of stated as a concern that it seems the biggest concern is the flare-ups across the highway. Flare up, singular. I'm not aware of any flare-up across the highway. There were yesterday.
That you talked at the very beginning of the meeting, that's not across the highway.
No, sir. There were one of the concerns was that if the fire were to cross the highway, we all know fire burns uphill. We all know that fire likes to be pushed in front of the wind. We have slopes up here and slopes up here. The southerly side is more heavily vegetated than the northern side. The winds are predominantly out of the southeast to the northwest. So they have a huge concern that if this fire did cross Highway 24, that the winds would push it up the ridges here and up the valley towards Woodland Park. I didn't say it happened. It's if. So they have firefighters, at least yesterday they did, and I suspect they do today, every 50 feet or every 50 yards watching so that when something comes across, they run up and they put it out very quickly.
Can you point out on the map where it happened?
No, because I don't know. There may have been different spots at different places along the entire corridor.
Well, the item that you spoke about.
That was on the north side of the highway, Costa. About where? It was right here. This is Lucky 4 Rocky Top Campground. This is the gravel pit here. So about halfway in between was the flare-up that you just saw this morning when everybody was walking in. But it was on the north side of the highway, and so it burned up. When the winds come up the highway, they also run up these canyons. So they follow the terrain. And so if the wind is blowing this way, these little gulches run this way, and so the wind is diverted, and it pushes up that way. That's what caused our big problem with the fire the other day. That's why it looked so horrific, is because it ran up it's called Wellington Gulch near the gravel pit, and it ran up and it hit the top of Rampart Range Road, and it actually blew over Rampart Range Road towards the reservoir. Very much wind driven. Yes, ma'am.
They were not announcing that T-Crass, Keller County Regional Animal Shelter is still open and available to take pets. However, we do need large kennels or any collapsible chain link kennels that you might have in your yards. So we are taking care of people's pets. And there was some concern because they were sending donations through the county to a different direction. But if you need something to do, we're walking a lot of animals and taking care of them there at that location.
So T-Crass wants me to announce that they still have room and divide for small animals. They could use some assistance with kennels, wire cages, etc., and they'll be able to continue accepting them into the future. But I can also tell you that they could use some dog walkers, and so if anybody wants to volunteer to help, is that true? You could use some help walking?
Yes.
Okay. Did you already say that?
It keeps them busy and keeps them
I'm sorry.
so.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Was just concerned if we do go to like the meetings in Divide or to help T-Crest, if there is the mandatory evacuation of the rest of the park while it's on, are we allowed to come back?
Get stuff.
Yes. But here's why I hesitated. They went from a standby to a mandatory down on the west side of Colorado Springs in a very short period of time. Our philosophy yesterday was to give you as much time as possible to prepare and then to get ready to leave. We did not want to wait until 5 o'clock in the evening, 6 o'clock, or 7 o'clock. We declared it at 11:40 yesterday so that you had time to get ready to go. And I don't believe that our officers or folks came through pushing people out. They wanted to give people time to orderly leave town because we knew the danger wasn't imminent. If the fire had been burning downwards, it would have been a completely different story. So, again, the decision is kind of yours. You have to do your own kind of risk management and risk assessment. But if you are helping somewhere and you think that you have time to get to where you are, and the fire is not racing down the hill, we'll let you back in to get your stuff and leave. Yes, ma'am.
I think maybe part of that question is a lot of us are afraid that if that fire does come up and over the ridge and down into the neighborhood area, and say we are out doing voluntary work with T-Crass or something, will they allow us back in to get our things that are on piggyback?
The question is if the fire is racing down the hill towards your home, and you have, and if you have decided to go volunteer somewhere, no, we're not going to let you back in. What's the right answer there? We're not going to let you back in because your life is significantly more important than your possessions. So my suggestion is be ready to go.
Yeah, we are, but having animals at home and we're going out.
Have a neighbor let them out or do something. But no, if it's racing down the hill, no, we're going to block off roads. You're not getting back in. I'm sorry to say. Yes, ma'am.
How much time do they actually have on the west side of the street?
I don't know. I can tell you that I don't know. It was more than 5 minutes, but I don't know. I do know that at one of the press conferences, the mayor of Colorado Springs stepped up and said these areas right now are on mandatory evacuation. And it was during that same press conference that the fire crested the hill and started its devastating run. But the conditions we don't think would be replicated up here unless there was a wind out of the east, which we rarely get. But when the thunderstorms happen, those winds are very erratic. So that's why we were safe yesterday rather than to be sorry tomorrow. Yes, sir.
A lot of us watch the media briefings at 8 o'clock and 4 o'clock on the local news. What would be the chance of having Teller County representation in those press briefings as well?
That question has come up for the last couple of days because folks up here have said, what about us? What about us? We're not getting the media coverage. If you watched this morning's 8 o'clock briefing, and actually even beginning yesterday morning, Mayor Bach, who is on the phone with our mayor every day, has mentioned Woodland Park and the efforts in Teller County. This morning, the incident commander, Rich Harvey, talked about Teller County, talked about Woodland Park. Haven't answered your question yet, which was, why can't El Paso County have representation at those meetings? Like I said, why can't Teller County have representation at those meetings that seem to be run by the Forest Service in El Paso County? And I would tell you that the leadership is there. Jim Ignatius, the Teller County Commissioner, is at the 7 o'clock meetings at night. He's there. He's just not at the podium. Our Mayor Turley is not down there. He's decided, appropriately so, to stay here and rely on that communication network that exists. We have a police officer that's in the Joint Information Center, one of our police officers. So when they hear something, they contact our uniforms who talk to me. That's a roundabout way of saying that we're getting representation, but we don't have space at the podium. And I don't know what it would take to cause that to happen. I think what I'm trying to tell you is I don't know that it's necessary. If long as we keep talking to you and they keep fighting the fires up here, I think we'll be okay. Yes, sir.
Is there an imaginary line drawn in the sand roughly for the pre-evac currently to go to a full evac situation?
Yes and no, and I don't mean to be uncertain, but I am. The Forest Service actually creates a lot of imaginary lines in different places. We created one Saturday afternoon at the police station, and that imaginary line was the Lucky Four Ranch Motel X Rocky Top Campground line that went right here. And so I said, if it crosses this line, we need to get out.
Right.
Now, you can see from that, it's crossed that line, but it's way up on top of the hill. So the lines, even though they're drawn in the sand, may not have meaning until you put it in the full context. So I will tell you that if we get into this Lucky Four area or up into the Cristola Canyon area, or this starts to turn this way, we'll work on an evacuation. But it's really based on so many things that if I drew a line in the sand, it might be misinterpreted. Yes, sir. Yeah, the question is there any information in the public about the arsonist? The answer is no. I can tell you that the the county and the city and state and federal agencies are working collaboratively together. You know, some days I hear there are leads, some days I hear there aren't. I know they've chased some leads, and what I can tell you is that for 2 days there's been no arson activity in Teller County. That's what I can tell you. Not that I couldn't tell you other. I just don't know. What I know and can tell you is there's been no activity in 2 days. I'm not trying to be deceptive. Yes, sir.
Are we not televising that 7 o'clock meeting, or do we have the capability to televise it?
That's a county meeting. I don't know if they're televising it. Well, and I don't get to run the county, so I don't know the answer to that question. There was
People are worried about going up there and then something happening, so.
There was news media there. KKTV carries it online. Yes, ma'am.
A friend of mine lives in the area, kind of behind City Market, behind the Eastern Kavanaugh Field at the Catholic Church, and he's had really mixed messages about if he was supposed to be evacuated or not. So he left, and now his work is mad at him for leaving because they say no.
Did you say the Catholic Church area?
Kind of behind there, behind Kavanaugh Field. I don't remember. It's like West.
Yeah. No, that's in the standby evacuation. Reverse 911 doesn't have the ability to pinpoint addresses that I'm aware of, because we've had folks north of even Highway 24 that have gotten those phone calls. Well, no, that's in the standby area. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
I live out by the Flying Cloud Estates. Do we get reverse 911 out there, being that we're outside of Woodland Park?
If they sign up for it, can they get reverse 911, Chief?
You have to sign up for it.
Yeah, you have to. Well,
If it's a landline phone,
Yes.
and where is that?
Flying Cloud.
Where is Flying Cloud?
Golf course.
Golf course. No,
West of the
that's
golf
in
course.
city that's either in the city or the county. So yes, you should get it based on your geographic location. However, if you have a cell phone, you have to go to the website and sign
Okay,
up.
but ground lines are covered.
Should be automatic. Yes, Tom.
Well, I researched that yesterday. Said if you're in the phone book, you're automatically on the system.
Okay. The statement was if you're in the phone book, you're automatically registered with reverse 911 with landlines. Yes, sir.
I didn't get one yet.
And where do you live? Okay, I know where Sand Road is. Yes, sir.
It's mandatory, but I got the reverse 911 when they had that escape prisoner. They were hauling around.
Yes, sir. Then I'm not sure what happened. Yes, sir. I'm not familiar enough to know why those two systems. He got an email from 911, but not a phone call. Perhaps one of my officers can help you with that. I don't know the answer to that. Yes, sir. Folks, if you're heading out, thanks for being here, but try to leave quietly so we can still have the questions answered.
My comment pertains to the first question that either you or you may be able to answer. My wife called the emergency medical center yesterday afternoon to get her stitches out, and they said, no, we're under mandatory evacuation. What? So we looked at the TV, said the remainder of Woodland Park was under emergency evacuation. At 4:45 this morning, I saw same thing.
You saw what? And were you the question has to do with the emergency room at the Pikes Peak Regional Medical Center? Langstaff? Did we hear something about Langstaff being open?
We did not.
So I don't know. I know the emergency room at our hospital is indeed open. We did hear yesterday that at least in the morning the old Langstaff Brown was closed. Yeah, again, it's a private entity, and they get to choose. Walmart's closed. They get to choose whether they stay open or not. But they're not part of the mandatory evacuation area. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say thank you to all of our city and firefighters.
Thank you. There are 80 very dedicated employees with a whole bunch of other volunteers that I get to work with to help keep you safe, and so far it's working. We haven't had any injuries. We've had a couple of traffic accidents. Don't know if it's a result of the evacuation, but we're trying to maintain a sense of calm. Yes, ma'am. Sir. Yes, sir. In the hat that I can't see because it's camouflaged.
I want to say I've gotten more usable information in the last 45 minutes to an hour than I've gotten in 3 days off television.
Yeah.
Well, then,
I want to thank you.
well, again, as I mentioned, I don't make any of this up. I don't have anybody feeding me directly. I get to kind of piece it together, but I'm glad you think that. Come back tomorrow, same time, same channel. Yes, sir, Bob.
My wife is, she's not here, so I can say this. She's addicted to vanilla milkshakes at McDonald's, and they're closed. Is that an individual decision, or are businesses being told?
No. There are some in the mandatory evacuation area to include the hospital and others that and gas stations that we've asked to stay open. But as far as other businesses, see, McDonald's is not in the mandatory evacuation area, but many of their employees might be. So they get to make that business decision on what they're going to do.
On the same line, are we going to get garbage pickup this week?
The city doesn't provide that service. You need to call Teller Waste or Waste Management. Yes, Tom?
With your crystal ball, where, if any, is there danger still?
Sure. I'll look. My crystal ball tells me the incident commander, who is a Type 1 incident commander from the Great Basin team out of Utah, who's been doing this for 20-plus years, said that he's seen 4 fires that have acted as erratically as this one, because one day it goes south, one day it goes east, one day it goes north. Even it came a little bit west. So it's too erratic to tell, Tom. You know the weather patterns up here. You know how the winds blow. What we know is that in this area in here, there are a lot of open meadows. We also know that this is a downhill slope. We know that the winds are predominantly out of the west to the east, or the southwest to the northeast, or in some cases from the southeast to the northwest. So you get to put all those pieces of the puzzle together to have a better understanding on the fire behavior. Yesterday was a good cloud cover, so it was a little higher humidity, a little cooler temperatures, and the winds were not erratic. They weren't erratic. And there was only about a 3 over 15, 1/5, it was still a 20% growth. It grew about 3,000 acres, I think, overnight is what I heard. Maybe 2,500, so less than that 20%. But a small amount of growth, not a ton of growth like the other days. We expect the same kind of, from what I've been told, they expect the same kind of day today. A little clearer, perhaps, a little drier, perhaps a little warmer, but the wind conditions are extremely favorable. Yes, Costa? Okay. Go ahead.
Is the FBI involved with the search for this animal?
I do not know the answer to that, if the FBI is involved with that.
David? Yes.
The answer is yes, the FBI is involved with this hunt. And Mario is here from the post office. Why don't you come up? Come up, Mario. Because Mario Madrid's our postmaster.
Thank you, Dave. I just want to clarify what's going on with your mail delivery. If you get home delivery and you're in the mandatory evacuation area, your mail is in Divide. If you are in the pre-evac area, the carriers are out delivering. That's why I'm a little late to this meeting. We were setting up our cases, temporary cases, so that we can get the mail lined out, so that we can give you mail delivery in the pre-evac area. Now, if you have a P.O. box at either Tamarack Station or a P.O. box at the main office, We have also set that up. That is in Divide. Now, I want to apologize if anybody went to Divide yesterday and you couldn't get your mail. That's because the mail was on a truck. We're trying to move the mail from the main office as well as Tamarack over to Divide. We made a decision because about half of our delivery area was in the mandatory evacuation area. I have 6 employees plus myself. I had to make a decision. Do we move the operation or not? I made the decision to move it based on yesterday's winds. I didn't want to be caught in the same situation that we got caught up in at Rock Rimmon Station Tuesday night. I made that decision, so I'll take the heat for it. So if you're in the mandatory evacuation area, your mail will be at Divide. If you're in the pre-evacuation area, our carriers are out delivering right now. Thank you.
Some concern has been expressed. Thank you, Mario, about the smoke that we're smelling even in here. The winds are generally out of the southwest right now, so that flare-up that occurred down near Sand Gulch and the gravel pit in that area, the smoke is pushing it just up the valley. You know, when we get smoke here, that's not necessarily a bad thing because that means the smoke is being carried by light winds. If it were a heavy wind, it would be blowing over the top of us, but what would be following it would not be good for us. That would mean the fire would be moving very quickly. So because we're getting a little bit of this smoke, it's drifting up the valley. It's not roaring towards us. Tyler Lambert, our Public Works Director, and our Mayor are currently on the ridge at Motel X Hill, Rocky Top Campground, Lucky Four Ranch, and they're watching the C-130s put down the slurry right north of the gulch that's 2 gulches from them. So they're remember I talked about painting that line to help control the flow of the fire? Well, we've got 6 very, very competent eyes. Our Public Works Director actually worked some firefighting issues in Idaho and Montana when he was in the Army, so he's got good knowledge of how these things work. Plus, our fire chief, our very own fire chief, who usually comes to these meetings, is there, and I trust him implicitly. So we've got great decision makers and great technical expertise watching that line for us. What? Yes, ma'am.
2 things. I got 2 reverse 911 calls on my cell phone yesterday, and also I got a phone call at home from the Woodland Park Waste Management saying that our trash will not be picked up. So until further notice, they're not picking it up.
The statement was she got 2 reverse 911s and a phone call from Waste Management saying no service. The reason for 2 reverse 911s could be a couple of reasons. Possibly one is for a standby and one was for mandatory.
Right.
Okay, so they're 2 different messages. Yes, sir.
In the standby area, at least they picked up our trash this morning. Waste Management.
Waste Management picked up trash in the standby area.
At least for us, yeah.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think the question was, how far up 67? Let's do it on this one. How far up 67? No, I need you to ask me again. I'm not going to tell you a distance because it's both distance, it's wind, it's the terrain. Again, there's a downslope towards this whole area, and that fires don't want to burn down the slope unless the wind's blowing horrifically in that direction. So there's not a distance that I'm comfortable providing to you. But we've got so many eyes out watching that I was here during the Hayman, and we didn't feel like we had all those eyes out. I've got much more confidence in this fire that there are eyes out there. We've got, as I mentioned early on, we've got Forest Service folks patrolling this east side of town. And so there are a lot of eyes out there watching what's going on. Mario, go. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a good question over here about outgoing mail. We have 9. We have a blue box over at Safeway. We have a blue box at Park State Bank. At the main office, there's 3 boxes. At Tamarack, there's 2 boxes. Plus at Tamarack and also the main office, there's an inside drop box. Those are out. Those are out of service. So you want to take your outgoing mail to Divide, okay? Because those boxes will not be picked up until we come back to Woodland Park. That's a very good question I had over here.
But you did clarify to me over there that when we received the mail in these little neighborhood arrangements you got, there is a slot there for outgoing mail, and you told me that we could use that slot for outgoing mail rather than try to provide.
That's correct. If you're in the pre-evacuation area and you're getting delivery and you have a central box unit or a neighborhood box unit and you have that outgoing, yes, because your carriers are going to be there delivering mail and picking up that mail in the pre-evacuation area. If it's a mandatory evacuation area, no.
Yes, Steve.
David, can you confirm CDOT's announcement this morning to the media that Highway 24 will remain closed through the weekend that's already confirmed?
I've not seen a CDOT announcement. I saw as part of the daily report, part of it said that they felt that 24 would be closed through the weekend. It wasn't an absolute, is my recollection of the report that I read, but I don't expect, from the information I have, that we can expect 24 to open up anytime in the next couple of days. The incident commander last night acknowledged that he's having conversations with Terry Makita, the El Paso County Sheriff, and Mike Insminger, the Teller County Sheriff, and they're at least strategizing different options. So if they're at least thinking about options, they're thinking about options. That doesn't mean they're going to execute them, but at least they're taking the time to think about them. So no, I can't confirm that they've said it's absolutely going to be closed through the weekend. But that would be my interpretation of what I read, is that it will be closed.
And I would agree, just be advised that that's what the broadcast media has been putting out since about 11.
Okay.
It will remain closed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yep. So the thought is that CDOT would meet Monday morning to make the decision. Okay? Say again?
They have it closed through the weekend. They're going to reassess Monday whether they want to open it.
Okay, reassessment on Monday on opening Highway 24. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My question is for David.
No, I'm David. He's Mario.
Master Mario.
We're brothers.
Saying that all mail is going to Divide, does that also include mail that it has already previously been in the boxes at the post office here? Has that gone, or is it still in the boxes?
Right now, you can go to your P.O. box at either Tamarack or the main and pick up your mail. We are not going to take that mail out of your boxes and then take it. Okay, so you need to go there and pick that up. The lobbies are open. Okay?
When was the last time the mail was put in the boxes?
Yesterday. Mail starting today is in Divide.
What if you were in the mandatory evacuation and you didn't check your mail cluster before you left? Is that mail gonna be brought to Divide, or is it just sitting up there where we take it to?
It's sitting in that box. Okay? And we can't get in there to do anything with it, just like you can.
Yes, just a real quick question. If the normal mail route goes both in the pre-evac and in the mandatory evac, that particular route, are they going to stop that whole route?
What we got is we have roughly about half our routes. We have 10 routes. And about 5 of our routes, about 50% of the deliveries are in the mandatory. That mail is being held in Divide. The other 50% is in the pre-evac area. That's what they're taken out for delivery. We had about 3 or 4 routes that were totally pre-evac. So they're taking 100% of their mail to deliver.
Well, I think my route covers both.
Yes. So
Just stop that whole route.
no, we're not stopping the whole route. We're just down to the mandatory evacuation. Now this.
Any other questions? Yes, Galen. Folks, if you could hold it down just for a second. I just can't hear. Go ahead, Galen.
I was just wondering, assuming that our pre-evac didn't go to a mandatory, for the ones that are still in the pre-evac, I mean, do you have any idea as far as like grocery stores, any of the businesses that are going to be still available or not?
Well, what?
Any sense of that?
I know that the City Market is still open. I know Safeway is still open. Other businesses get to make that decision. I think Donut Mill's closed. I think.
Can I interrupt? Grandma just came up. Mayor Dave Turley just drove up through town. Can give a little more detail. I don't want to inject the other things, but spent the last 3 hours with our Public Works Director, Bill Alsbach, and we drove pretty much the entire fire line as relates to us. We went up on Rampart Range Road, went all the way down to the top of Wellington Gulch, and if you want to,
I'll point.
Okay, Wellington Gulch, which is where the fire really came up towards Rampart Reservoir the other day. This finger that came up. So we drove all the way out here. We saw fire crews out there working, stopped and spoke with a couple of them, shook their hand, told them how much we appreciated what they're doing. And those guys that I saw are really working. Those guys were on the third contingency line. So I might talk about that a little bit. They've got a primary contingency line that goes up the ridge that's kind of to the southeast of Cristola. And they've got that cut all the way up to, they're on a road, and then they've graded all the way up to Rampart Range Road. And then there's three other contingency lines that they're working and doing clearing and have bulldozed as a contingency. Crews are up there working. There's a lot of equipment. I mean, I saw a lot of big bulldozers, a lot of people down here at the top of Rocky Top, where Rocky Top Campground is, Lucky 4. We just spent a good bit of time down there. The helicopter Type 1 was doing a lot of lifts out of the lake down there and doing fighting on top of the ridge. It's kind of up above, what is that, Sand Gulch? Sand Gulch.
The next one up.
Yeah. And well, we've been back a little bit earlier, but they were bringing in a heavy. They had two C-130s that came in. One had a malfunction and had to go back to Peterson. The other one did a drop on that ridge. The helicopter that was working there had to go and refuel, and actually I believe was picking up some slurry and is then going to be doing some drops on the north side of Rampart Reservoir. So it was pretty amazing for me to see the amount of activity that's going on and how hard that's being worked to ensure that that doesn't come up here. I will tell you that things up on top of Rampart Range, this is from a layman's perspective, looked much better. I mean, where it came up from Wellington Gulch, it did cross and went over towards Rampart Range or Rampart Reservoir, but they've got a good line along Rampart Range Road up there, and between that, I mean, it's not come across Rampart Range Road towards us, so that's really a good thing. Bill Alsbach and I saw the commander of the force that's working this while we were down there at Lucky 4 Road. And so we got to chat with him a little bit, instilled some confidence in my perspective on what's going on. I got to tell you, I feel a lot better having seen what I saw. And I might also add, when we came down from Rampart Range Road, we actually came down the road that comes down through Cristola Canyon. So we came back down to US 24, that route.
One that comes out on 4th Street? Is that what
Yeah, I think that's it.
Were there still houses?
Oh, yes, we came down through the houses.
Okay, we
we came down through there, and there's actually, they've done some, little clearing and things along the road, and that's, yeah, and for you, the fire is still a good long ways from you.
Okay, that's what we're kind of, because we're hearing that they're doing possibly dozing lines and that they were talking about maybe doing a sprinkler system up in that area, and so I'm very curious.
Okay, that's great. Oh, is Tyler here?
Yes.
Oh, he can talk. Tyler can talk to this much better than me. I will address, though, there was the question about stores in town as we came up. Safeway was open. City Market is open. Grandmother's was open. The Chinese restaurant. Walgreens is open.
Oh, it is open? Good.
Yep, Walgreens is open.
Thank you.
But I didn't stop and wasn't doing a inspection, but observe quite clear what was open.
Okay.
Somebody has a question.
Yeah, we've been answering questions for, a good 45 minutes or so. So I appreciate your patience. But our Northeast Teller County Fire Protection District Chief, Tyler Lambert, is here. And so I'm going to have him come up and talk a little bit more specifically about some of the resources that are in this area. A question did come up about, is it okay to put mail in the PO parking lot mailboxes? Mario's not here anymore, but I would assume it's yes. He said no?
He said they're all closed.
I would assume the answer is no. Mario, can they put mail in the mailboxes across the street, the outside mailboxes?
Blue outside boxes?
Yes.
Okay, we want that mail, because those mail have been taken out of service. Okay? Now, what I'm doing is I will come down and pick those up, but they're out of service. We want everybody to take their outgoing mail to provide. Or if you happen to get an MBU or CPU delivery, phone delivery, put them in the little slot there.
Thank you. I also need to clarify something I said earlier about the pre-evacuation area that was east of Woodland Park. Recall somebody asked me up in the Tranquil Acres area. I said it was areas east of County Road 5. That was the information that was stated last night. That's incorrect. It's County Road 25. And so I've got that document here that says it's all areas east of County Road 25, which is also known as Tranquil Acre Road and at Mox. It did, that correction. And the reason it went out on Nixle is because they heard me say County Road 5, and that was a mistake. Right, just got that. And I also need to tell you that I did have this yesterday. I said I wanted to know why I didn't get this. I did have it. I'm sorry.
Is it posted on your site? Will the new pre-vax be posted?
On the Teller County website, because that's the Teller County area. We'll, yes, it will. Let's go to the Teller County website. Yes, Chief.
We got some recent calls at the police department about a very loud noise, and people were concerned it was something related to the fire or something dangerous. It was just isolated thunder. But enough people were concerned about it that I thought I'd bring it up. We've been calling that before.
Okay, thank you. There was some isolated noise or loud noises. It was thunder. One of the other things, too, yesterday when we did the evacuation, about the same time we had the evacuation going on, we had a traffic accident or somebody fell off a ladder or something. So there was an injury, both. And so ambulances were heading that way. And I'm in my office and I hear, the evacuation, which I know about, and I hear the sirens, and it causes me to be concerned. So we're trying not to run with sirens because that causes people to get anxious. But if you hear sirens, it doesn't mean there's an emergency from an evacuation standpoint. You'll know about that. We'll be using loudspeakers. We'll be using everything. But first responders are still going to respond as they do with sirens and lights. So Tyler is still not back in the building, but the mayor has something else to say.
No, not for that. Do we have TV here or not?
Well, I think so, but I don't know who.
Well, I'm due to make a couple of phone calls back. I've been out of phone communication, and I just wanted to kind of know what we have going on.
We have Channel 13 and 11.
Okay.
Mountain Jackpot.
And the Mountain Jackpot.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
Is Channel 11 a recording live or?
I don't.
It's going to the web.
Ours, I think, is going to the web as well.
Okay.
And I think it's your
ours that are
Okay.
shipping to our website, not our own.
Okay, I just asking because I was just asking because I've been out of cell range for a little bit, and I have quite a few phone calls backed up that I need to go make. Before I do that, though, I'll answer any questions that you might have for me as mayor, and keep them kind of. If David could answer them and take care of them, I'd be pleased for him to do that. But if you have something specific for me, I'd be more than happy to take that. If not, or after that, I'll go take make my phone calls and come back. So.
You'll be here for a bit?
I will be.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully we can touch base.
Okay. Very good.
In a little bit.
Okay.
David's done a wonderful job.
Oh. Well, and I will just say to you, all of you, that we have really worked this as a team. I mean, David is the city manager. I mean, he's the administrator. He runs the city. But as mayor and elected as mayor, David and I have been pretty much locked hip to hip since Saturday afternoon. And so we're working this all together as a team, and of course in conjunction with Northeast Teller County Fire and the Sheriff's Office out in Divide. So it truly is a team effort. Okay?
Thank you, Dave. Okay, yes, sir.
Could you elaborate a little bit more on the hospital? Is it only the emergency? What happens? Like, I got banged up a little bit, clearing my land.
If you have an emergency, the hospital will still treat you.
But, what if I got a sore throat or something? Is there any doctor?
Well, you could still consider that an emergency. You can go to the emergency room, and they'll do their triage.
Doctors in there.
Pardon me?
There's no other doctors taking normal calls.
No.
Because some of us have INR tests and stuff that we have to have.
Check with the hospital. As far as I know, those are not occurring.
Yeah, those aren't emergencies. But
Correct.
You can't leave, somewhere 100 miles to somewhere else.
You need to check with the hospital. Folks, thank you very much for being here. We'll do this again tomorrow at 11:30. If you have specific questions to look at the map, please come take a look at it. Thank you so much.